What is a nonprofit annual report? Why do you need one, and what goes in it? In this video, we're going to talk all about how to create an annual report for your nonprofit or social enterprise organization that will keep inspiring your donors, your volunteers, and members of the general public to support your cause year after year. Welcome or welcome back. I'm Amber Melanie Smith. I'm a nonprofit founder and executive director, and love to make these videos on YouTube all about those topics: starting a nonprofit, fundraising, making a social impact, and more. Don't forget to give this video a like if you find it helpful, subscribe to my channel for more content like this, and ring the bell for alerts for the next time I post a video. If you're also looking for resources on starting a nonprofit or how to develop a sustainable fundraising plan, be sure to check out the trainings on my website, foundertofulltime.com. Okay, I want to get started with a little bit of a refresher for those of you who are new to this concept. What is an annual report, and why does your organization need one? Why is it a good idea for your organization to publish an annual report each year? So in essence, an annual report is a report that you would publish and distribute to your stakeholders, so probably your volunteers, your donors, your leadership team and their associates, and the general public. And this report includes an update on your organization's impacts from the year prior, as well as your organization's financial status and status of your goals. This is not to be confused for your organization's annual filing, which, at least in the USA, is the document that you would complete and submit to the IRS. It's essentially your annual taxes. So why do you need an annual report? Well, it is a good idea always to keep your general public, your community, informed of what your organization is up to, but an annual report is a great marketing tool that you can use to showcase all of the good work that you did and all of the good that you accomplished in the year before, and send that out to your folks. So this is a tool that you can use to basically help people feel justified in the support that they gave you, whether that was through giving their volunteer time or donating their dollars to your cause. It helps them see essentially what you're able to accomplish with the resources they invested in your mission. A good annual report will also help you build trust with your supporters, because among other things, one of the things that you will include in your annual report is your financial status. This is typically the revenue that you brought in and some of the things that you spent the money that you raised on to achieve your nonprofit's mission. This level of transparency really helps the general public and your supporters feel like you are accountable to them. So those are the basics around what an annual report even is and what its purpose is, how it helps your organization. Let's talk a little bit about the logistics around when you would send an annual report. Typically, organizations will send out their annual report and publish it publicly about 1 or 2 months after the end of their fiscal year. So if you are on a traditional calendar year for your organization's fiscal year, that would be January through December, and then you would publish your annual report probably sometime in the January to March timeframe of the following year. And of course, as we've talked about in other videos, your fiscal year can be any 12-month period that suits your organization and its cash flow. So you could say it's July through June, you could say it's April through March, it really doesn't matter. But as I said, you're probably sending out this annual report a couple months after the last month of that fiscal year each year. What format should your annual report take? Let's talk about some options. Traditionally, annual reports that I've seen are a PDF document, and this is something that could be either printed and mailed out through snail mail or emailed or linked to on your website. But more and more there is a movement towards different and more online accessible annual report formats. So what I mean by that is just that you might choose to build your annual report right into a web page on your website. And the advantages of this, of course, are it's a little easier to view online, and it encourages sharing because people can just grab that link and pass it on to their friends and networks. Of course, if your organization happens to serve a population that is less internet savvy or has less access to the internet, then sending snail mail copies to those folks is a way to make sure you can keep them included in your reporting. A couple of other interesting formats for annual reports that we are starting to see include interactive clickable presentations on web pages. Those are always fun. Infographics, so reports that are more design and image heavy as opposed to text heavy, are always visually appealing in my opinion. I personally really love this example from Girls Who Code. Their 2018 annual report is just beautiful and fun. I will provide a link to that in the description of this video if you kind of want to just check that out and get inspired. And some organizations are even experimenting with doing an annual report strictly through a video format that includes, obviously comments from their leadership, but also data and storytelling. There are really a number of tools out there that you can use to create an annual report for your organization. I know I love Canva. It has some great templates that you can check out no matter what your level of graphic design skill may be. It's a great resource, and a lot of the templates that they have are free also. Of course, sometimes Google Slides or PowerPoint is great for that too. And if you're going the video route, there are a number of free or low cost video editing tools out there for folks that don't necessarily need a lot of experience to know how to properly edit those videos. Okay, so at this point we've talked about what an annual report is, its purpose, who it goes to, when you would send it, and some of the possible formats for how you would create it. Now let's talk a little bit more in depth about what you're going to want to include in your annual report for its content. There's a little bit of flexibility here, and like I said, organizations are getting creative about how they present their annual reports, so maybe you'll think of some other things that you'd want to include. But in general, a typical annual report will include these 6 elements. The first is a brief message or letter from your most senior leadership. So this is often your nonprofit's executive director or board chair, and sometimes you can even have both. So a letter from both your executive director and your board chair. Second, you always want to include your nonprofit's mission statement and vision statement. Even if you're going to be sending this report to people that you're fairly confident know your organization well, it's always a good idea to reinforce that mission statement by putting it on all of your materials whenever you get a chance. Third, you're going to want to include your organization's current strategic goals. What are some of the things that you're trying to accomplish in the future? Where are you going as an organization? This is something that you can include to inspire people to think about how they could support your future goals while they're reading about your past accomplishments. Knowing where you're going will create a sense of confidence that you know what you're doing as an organization and that you are working towards meaningfully addressing the social or community issue that your nonprofit was formed to address. And pairing that with your explanation of what you accomplished in the past year just bolsters your credibility. And on that note, the next thing you want to include is what you accomplished in the past year. You want to talk about all of the good that you accomplished in the past fiscal year, and you want to do this not only by sharing the numbers, so how many people you served or helped or meals packaged or whatever your mission may be, animals rescued, for example. You want to include those numbers, but you also want to do some storytelling around these numbers. People connect emotionally more to stories of an individual or one community that you served as a nonprofit. So you want to balance including both the data and the personalized storytelling to make it a compelling annual report. I recommend, once again, if you're going to use a lot of numbers, presenting them in at least a visually appealing way, like through an infographic. Including high quality photos is a must, and as I said before, at least one, but perhaps even a handful of impact stories showcasing specific individuals or animals or communities, or depending on your mission, people that were served by your organization over the past year. Fifth, you want to include your organization's annual financial statement. This is a breakdown of your organization's revenue and expenses on a high level. On the revenue side, you'll see a lot of nonprofits sharing the general sources of the funds in categorical terms. So number of donations or amount of money that came from grants, amount of money that came from sponsorships, amount of money that came from individual donors or the government, etc. So just those larger buckets is how a lot of organizations will break down their revenue. And nothing beats a good pie chart for this. It just really helps simplify this information and make it visually appealing again. And on the expenses side, a high-level overview of how the money was spent. You can break it down by your main programs, your administrative expenses, etc. Talking about money and your financial status as an organization can be awkward and perhaps even feel a little uncomfortable, but just remember, your donors are looking to you to be transparent about how you're spending the resources that they have trusted you with. So it's always important to do that. And there are ways of showcasing this as something that is really critical to achieving your mission, which is what it's all about. I really like how Charity Water did this in their 2018 annual report. They didn't just break down their finances, but they framed the conversation around their finances by just reinforcing that the money that they raised was money that translated into impact. I'll leave the link to their report in the description below if you want to kind of check it out and see how they did that. But I thought it was really smart and a really impactful way of reminding donors and supporters that this isn't just money that they give that goes into an abyss. This is an investment that they are making in tackling an important issue that helps people. The sixth and final major thing that you want to make sure you include in your annual report is a thank you for your major contributors. And here's the caveat for that. You want to only do that if you have their permission to share their name. Many annual reports will list the organization's top funders, whether that is a grant foundation or a corporate sponsor or an individual donor. But it's really important, especially with individual donors, that you make sure, if you're not sure, that you have their permission to put their name in the report. Some donors I know are very discreet. They prefer to stay anonymous and don't really like public recognition. So it's important for them to not be named. So just be very thoughtful and courteous about how you approach listing your donors. But it is a good idea to list those you have the permission to do so because that sort of adds a level of credibility to your organization. It says to the public, look at all these amazing supporters we have. Don't you want to be one of them? And it adds a level of officialness, I don't think that's actually a word. It adds a level of officialness to your organization and its fundraising efforts. Those are the 6 components you want to be sure to include. Like I said, it's a little flexible, so you could think of interesting additional things that you might want to include, but just a couple of additional tips here to wrap up. In my opinion, you should avoid being too cold with your language that you're using in your annual report. I think it's much better to use inviting, warm, personal, perhaps even depending on your organization's brand, informal language. Remember, people who read your report are human beings and they want to see the human being on the other side of the report too. So in my opinion, it's a good idea to stay away from overly stuffy or corporate language in these reports. Just reinforcing one more time to make your report visually appealing. Nobody wants to read 10 pages of dense text. So use, lots of color, use your organization's brand colors, use design elements, use photos, try to make it visually interesting wherever you can. And I said this before also, but just one more time, try to get creative. Think about ways you might make your report stand out. Could you make it interactive? Could you include a video? What's going to work for you that's really going to capture the attention of your supporters and make your report memorable? I mentioned a couple of other annual reports and resources throughout this video, and like I said, I'll be sure to leave the links to those in the description below if you want to check them out for more inspiration. Okay, I would love to hear from you at this point. Are you creating your first or second or third annual report this year? I'd love to hear your questions or ideas in the comments. I'm sure the rest of our community of changemakers would love to see those too. If you have a lot of experience creating annual reports, definitely include your tips below too. As I mentioned before, if you are looking for some additional training and help on starting a nonprofit or developing a sustainable fundraising plan, check out the trainings on my website, foundertofulltime.com. I also have a group on Facebook called Change the World or Bust, where we have like couple thousand people from all around the world. It's awesome, who are all interested in making a difference in their own unique ways, and I invite you to come join our community there. Finally, if you're looking for some just additional resources or sometimes even funding leads and articles on social impact trends, I have a super cool newsletter. You can subscribe to that using the link that I'll leave in the description below as well, and of course opt out anytime you'd like. Thank you as always for watching. Once again, I'm Amber Melanie Smith, and I hope to see you next time.